Bismillah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Hello dear students, I hope you are doing well. Welcome to another video from our Easy Chemistry for our channel. This is Mr. Muad and today we will start a new lesson bi'idhnillah. First of all guys, thank you for helping us reaching 339 subscribers as of now. Again, if you did not subscribe, please subscribe to the channel. Share the channel and the videos with your friends all over across the country in your groups, okay, and let's reach our first 1000 subscriber hopefully by the end of the year, okay. And like when you share it guys, hopefully many more students will benefit from the videos bi'idhnillah ta'ala. So thank you very much. Okay. So now we start in module 6 lesson 1, and this module is all about ions. So the first lesson is titled ion formation, تكوين الأيون. You studied الأيونات من قبل. So ions are charged atoms, يعني ذرات مشحونة. So الشحنة or the charge for ions can be positive or negative, and that's what we will see throughout the PowerPoint. Okay, so after this lesson you can define what's a chemical bond, الرابطة الكيميائية. Okay, describe the formation of positive and negative ions, شرح كيفية تكون الأيون الموجب والسالب. Relate the ion formation to the electron configuration. So remember the electron notation and configuration, 1s, 2s, 2p, and so on. We're going to use it to write it for the ions, okay? So in part 1 we will define the chemical bond while explaining why elements bond or make or create these bonds, and describe the formation of positive and negative ions, okay? So let's think guys. You have H2O here, right? Is this a compound or an element? So, as many of you are going to say, it's a compound, right? Which elements is it made of? Oxygen and hydrogen, so O and H. Why do oxygen and hydrogen form water? So, why do oxygen and hydrogen form water? Why they form this compound? That's an interesting question, right? What about NaCl, guys? We use it a lot in the kitchen. Sodium chloride. It's actually salt, okay? Sodium chloride. So is it a compound or an element? It is a compound. Which elements is it made of? Sodium, Na, and chlorine, Cl, right? Why do sodium and chlorine form salts? Why there's a chemical bond between them? This is what we are going to discover throughout this lesson, guys, okay? So let's think, guys. Why do elements form compounds? This is the main theme or the main question of the lesson, all right? Now, this is the main idea. The main idea is that ions, الأيونات, are formed when atoms gain, تكتسب, so gain means تكتسب, or lose valence electrons, guys, okay? To achieve a stable octet electron configuration. Remember the octet rule? The octet rule says that atoms become happy. What does happy mean? Stable. When they have 8 valence electrons. So guys, starting from now, I will not write valence electrons, I will write VE. V for valence, E negative is for electrons, okay? Like who? Like group 18 in the periodic table, the noble gases. Okay, there is an exception. If the notation, the electron notation is 1s2, like helium, اللي هو أول عنصر في group 18, then it is happy. Okay, only 1s2, you are happy. Otherwise, you need 8 valence electrons, and we'll see some other exceptions, okay, throughout the video. So that's why atoms lose or gain electrons, okay. Now these are some keywords. Have a look at it. Chemical bond. So chemical bond is the force that holds two atoms or ions or molecules together. الرابطة الكيميائية. Chemical reactivity. Chemical reactivity explains how reactive a substance is. تقول لك مدى أو قوة التفاعلية حق الذرة أو الأيون أو المركب. So high chemical reactivity means bond formation is easy. So if you have high chemical reactivity, it means you can create chemical bonds easily. That means lose, gain, or share valence electrons. Cation is a positive ion. So a positive ion with a positive charge is called a cation. If you have a negative ion with a negative charge, we call it an ion. So بدل ما نقول positive ion نقول cation, وبدل ما نقول negative ion نقول anion. Okay? And this is an example, Na positive and Cl negative. So the charge here is positive 1. In chemistry, we don't write 1. So sometimes we write it, sometimes we don't. So when you see plus like this plus means plus 1. Okay? So guys, you have two types of chemical bonds. الروابط الكيميائية, we have two types. One of them is the ionic bond, okay, which is the force between or attraction between cations and anions. لأن احنا نعرف ما بين الموجب والسالب تجاذب, صح؟ So if you have a positive ion and a negative ion, there will be attraction, تجاذب, and we call that attraction ionic bond. We have another type of bond which we'll cover in module 7 inshallah, the next chapter, which is called the covalent bond. The covalent bond ما فيها lose or gain electrons, فيها sharing, تشارك. Okay, sharing of electrons, which we'll see later. Our focus today here is on this, or this module. Our focus is on the ionic bond. Okay, so try to test yourself, guys, and try to answer the question. So a force that exists between two atoms and holds them up together, we call it chemical bond. أول كلمة في keywords. What are the two types of bonds we mentioned so far? We mentioned two in the previous slides. Ionic and covalent. So ionic and covalent bond. Okay? So again, this is the explanation or definition of a chemical bond. It's the force that holds two atoms together. And how do chemical bonds form? So chemical bonds are formed by the attraction, يعني attraction force, يعني في تجاذب. Okay, التجاذب هذا يكون ما بين the positive nucleus and the negative electrons of another atom, يعني النواة الموجبة وإلكترونات ذرات أخرى، المهم تجاذب, or between positive ions and negative ions, and this is the ionic bond. أهم شيء في attraction. Okay, هذه طرق تكون الرابطة الكيميائية, the ways that a chemical bond is formed. Okay, between atoms. So you can either have positive ion and the negative ion وفي تجاذب, or you can have the nucleus, النواة of an atom and the electrons of another atom, وشو يحصل ما بين الموجب والسالب تجاذب. So these are the types or the meaning of these two sentences. Okay? So this slide is just to show you the electron dot structure of some atoms, guys. Okay? For example, lithium, the notation is 1s2, 2s1. Beryllium is 1s2, 2s2. So 1 valence electron, 2 valence electrons, 4 valence electrons, and then 8 valence electrons. So this atom has 8 valence electrons. Happy. Stable. Fluorine has 7 valence electrons, 8 valence electrons here, 5 valence electrons, 4 valence electrons. So these are not happy. Sorry, this is 6 valence electrons in oxygen. So how can they become happy? They need more electrons, okay? And that's how they form chemical bonds. So just a quick review. Ionization energy refers to how easily an atom loses an electron. So low, this is ionization energy. Low ionization energy, اللي هي طاقة التأيون, equals easy loss of electron. يعني ما نحتاج طاقة كبيرة عشان نشيل إلكترون من الذرة. So it's easy. Okay, so it will create a positive ions because remove or lose electron meaning positive ion, creating a positive ion. Now the other keyword is electron affinity, which is affinity means liking, okay? So indicates how much attraction an atom has for electrons. So high, this is electron affinity. So high electron affinity equals easy gain of electron, and it will create a negative ion because لما نكتسب electron نكون ion سالب. Okay? So noble gases which have high ionization energy يعني difficult to lose electrons, and low electron affinity hate gaining electrons, show a general lack of chemical reactivity. تتذكرون chemical reactivity قلنا تعريفها هي انه الذرة تكون روابط كيميائية تفقد او تكتسب او تشارك الكترونات. Okay? So chemical reactivity refers to the ability of atoms to create chemical bonds by losing, gaining or sharing electrons. So noble gases, they don't want to make chemical bonds. They don't want to lose electrons. They hate electrons and they don't want to get them. What is the reason for that? The reason is the following. Noble gases have 8 valence electrons. They are happy, stable, they follow the octet rule. They don't want to lose or gain electrons. Okay? That's why they have high ionization energy and low electron affinity. So why do other elements, الحين نتكلم على الذرات الثانية اللي تكون روابط. Why do elements become ions and form ionic bonds? So the elements tend to react, form chemical bonds, to acquire the stable electron structure of a noble gas, meaning 8 valence electrons, الoctet rule. هدف الذرات في الحياة يكون عندها 8 valence electrons عشان تصبح سعيدة and stable, مستقرة. Okay? So atoms try to form an octet stable arrangement of 8 valence electrons in the outer energy level by gaining or losing valence electrons, so forming ions. So that's why atoms form ions, because they want to become happy. They want to have 8 valence electrons. عشان شيء الذرات تفقد أو تكتسب إلكترونات بحيث أن يصبح عندها 8 إلكترونات or 8 valence electrons عشان تصير مستقرة and happy. Like who? Like the noble gases. Okay guys? So now stop the video and try to answer this question. Alright. The question says, why do atoms form ions? ليش الذرات تكون أيونات? Is it to have a similar electron notation of noble gases? Yes. To become stable and happy? Yes. To achieve 8 electrons in the outer shell. هذه معناها 8 valence electrons. Do you think this is true? Yes. So what should the answer be? All of the above. A, B, and C are all correct. Okay? The type of bond between oppositely charged ions is based on attraction. يعني إذا عندنا أيون موجب وأيون سالب, الكيميكال بوند اللي بينهم اللي هي ionic bond هي قوة تجاذب attraction. Is that true or false? So you can stop the video. And the answer is true. لأنه ما بين السالب والموجب دائما في تجاذب. Okay guys, that's the end of part 1. Okay, talks about chemical bonds and why atoms make chemical bonds. Let's go to part 2. Okay, we remember how ionic bond is formed, analyze the electron notation of different ions, and practice writing the electron notation of different ions. Okay, so remember that the ionic bond is between positive and negative ions. ذرة تفقد إلكترون والذرة الثانية تكتسب الإلكترون فيحصل تجاذب ما بينهم. Now I want you to solve these questions, guys. Stop the video and try to solve these questions alone, and then let's come back. Okay, Hopefully you got these answers, guys. Okay? So this is the electron configuration of sodium. And this is the electron notation of fluoride. So it tells you here in the question which atom is going to form a positive ion and which atom is going to form a negative ion. So to know which is going to form which, you should remember atoms want 8 valence electrons. The rat treat 8 valence electrons, right? So if we go up here, how many valence electrons does this one have? 1 valence electrons. I want to ask you a question. Which one is easier? إن احنا نضيف 7 إلكترونات وتصير 8 or we lose this one and automatically you will have 8 valence electrons, 6 and 2, 8. Which one is easier? Give 7 electrons or lose only 1 and then you will become automatically happy? So this one is easier, right? So Na will lose the electron and it will become positive. And F has 7 valence electrons here, right? 2 plus 5. It needs only 1 electron. So if we add 1 electron there, it will become 2p6 لأن p تتفول ب6. And now we create a negative ion because we added an electron. And this is the explanation here, guys. Okay? And both of them will have this electron notation. 1 is 2, 2 is 2, 2p6. So how does a positive ion, is a positive ion formed? So look here, guys. This is Na, ذرة sodium, neutral, 11 electrons, sorry. 11 electrons and 11 protons. So الشحنة الحين ناقص 11 زائد 11 يساوي 0. So neutral, متعادلة. Now if you lose an electron, what's the new number of protons? It's still 11, but electrons are now 10 because I lost 1. فقدت electron. So plus 10 minus plus 11 minus 10 equals how much, guys? Alright, guys. So by losing this electron, the number of protons is 11 and the electrons are 10. So plus 11 الشحنة الموجبة حق البروتونز minus 10 اللي هي الشحنة السالبة حق الإلكترونات كم يعطيني؟ plus 1. That's why the sodium becomes an ion لأنه الحين عنده شحنة. فما دام إنه صار عنده شحنة فنخليه ion. We call it an ion. And it's a cation because it's positive. Okay? It's a cation because it's positive. And this is how the ion is formed. So the sodium atom, we give it energy, ionization energy, to remove the electron. So these are the reactants. And في البرودكت شو يتكون لي؟ يتكون لي Na positive ويطلع إلكترون برا اللي شلنا. Okay? So now you need to focus on this. Positive ions are formed from metals. Do you remember metals? في الموديول 5 lesson 1 الميتالز اللي هي groups 1 to 13. Not all 13, but you can find the most famous metal in group 13 is aluminum. But the rest are metals, of course, except for hydrogen in group 1 as well. Okay, hydrogen is out; it's not a metal. So what is the most important part here is that metal atoms اللي هي الفلزات أو المعادن are reactive عندها تفاعلية شديدة because they lose valence electrons easily. So metal atoms, they create positive ions. Now group 1 and group 2 metals are the most reactive metals. أكثر جروبات شديدة التفاعل العناصر اللي موجودة في group 1 و group 2. Okay? So this is a summary of the groups or main groups and their ions. So group 1 have only 1 valence electron, right? So it will lose it and it will create a positive ion. So this is the charge. In group 2 there are 2 valence electrons, so it will lose them and it will create positive 2 charge. Group 13 have how many valence electrons? 3 valence electrons. If you lose the valence electrons, you will create an ion with a charge of positive 3. So if this element was A, it will become A plus. إذا كان هذا A, it will become A plus 2. This one is A, it will become A plus 3. 1 electron here, 2 electron here, and 3 electrons here. هذا فقد 3 إلكترونات، هذا فقد إلكترونين، هذا فقد إلكترون واحد. Okay guys? So which metals are the most reactive? We saw it here, right? Group 1 and group 2 metals. Now, how can we find the charges of metal ions? So as I told you, the charges are from the groups. If you are in group 1, your charge will be plus 1. Group 2, طبعا group 2 في الجدول الدوري in the periodic table. Okay? Group 2, positive 2. Group 13, positive 3. Alright guys? So, let's imagine that Al has 13 electrons. What's the electron notation for Al? Can you write it? Stop the video and write it. So, it is this one. How many valence electrons does it have? 3 valence electrons. Here, 1 valence electron, 2 valence electrons, 3 valence electrons. So because it has 3 valence electrons, it's a metal, معدن. And it's in group 13. So it's going to lose 3 electrons to become happy and become an ion. Okay? This is what's written here. It has to lose 3 valence electrons to become stable and happy. And we are going to lose this part. So this part we will cancel it. So now this is the new ion. Why is the charge plus 3? Because we lost 3 valence electrons. And this is the new notation. Now how many valence electrons do we have? 8. So it's happy. Okay? Now, not all metals are or can form 8 valence electrons. There are some exceptions. في بعض الاستثناءات. Now transition metals اللي هم في group 3 to 12, they form different charges, plus 2, plus 3 ions, maybe plus 1, and sometimes more than plus 3. So other relatively stable electron arrangements are called pseudo-noble gas configuration. So it's not a noble gas, it's pseudo-noble gas configuration. So instead of having 8 valence electrons, they will have 18 valence electrons. Okay? يعني بدل ما يكون عندنا بس 8 valence electrons يصير عندنا 18. Why? Because we add the D. Because remember, this is the D block. So there are electrons in the D sublevel. Okay? So what does that mean? Let's take zinc for an example. Zn has 30 electrons. This is the electron notation. Okay? This is the electron notation for zinc, guys. Alright? So, how many valence electrons does it have? It has 2 valence electrons. Okay? So when it loses them, it will lose these 2 valence electrons and the charge will become plus 2. What's the new electron notation? 1 is 2, 2 is 2, 2p6, 3 is 2, 3p6, 3d10. الحين, let's look how many valence electrons does it have. So 2, 6, 10, 18. This is actually stable. هذا هو الإكسبشن الاستثناء. الاستثناء إذا عندنا 18 valence electron في ال S وال P وال D, we call it pseudo noble gas configuration. يعني يشبه النوبل gas configuration لأنه ال D full وال P full وال S full. Okay guys, so this is a pseudo noble gas configuration. So you remove the electrons from here, and now, so you remove 2 electrons guys. This is the ionization energy. لأن احنا عشان نشيل الإلكترونات اللي هني لازم نعطي طاقة. And now يطلعوا الإلكترونات. So these 2 electrons are outside, and now this is the new configuration. Okay, you can read it here, and it's all mentioned. Now, let's talk about the negative ions, guys. الأيونات السالبة. Let's talk about the negative ions. So, non-metals. Okay, اللي هم من group 14 إلى 18. Mainly, many of them are in groups 14 to 18. مش كل العناصر اللي فيها، لكن أغلبها. So the non-metals can easily gain electrons. Okay, so they gain electrons, meaning they will create a negative ion. لأنه بيكتسبوا إلكترونات. Look at chlorine here. Normal chlorine has 17 electrons and 17 protons. So الشحنة الكاملة تكون minus 17 plus 17 equals 0. Neutral. What if we gave it an electron? إذا ضفنا لها electron. How many electrons does it have now? 18. And how many protons? 17. So how can we know if it is Cl minus? Just add the electrons. كم شحنة الإلكترونات؟ ناقص 18 plus البروتونات 17 ناقص 18 زائد 17 يساوي negative 1. So it will create a negative ion, okay, or an anion. Now, how can we find the charges of the non-metal ions? So we'll focus on group 15, 16, and 17 only. So group 15, how many valence electrons does it have? 5 valence electrons. 16, 6 valence electrons. 17, 7 valence electrons. Alright? Now 5 valence electrons. كم تحتاج عشان تصير happy يكون عنده 8؟ تحتاج 3 إلكترونات. So 3 electrons are gained and the charge will be negative 3. 6 valence electrons. كم تحتاج عشان تصير happy؟ 2 valence electrons. So إذا ضفنا لها 2 الcharge تصير negative 2. 17. How many valence electrons does it have? 7. So it needs only 1 electron. وإذا ضفنا لها إلكترون واحد بتصير negative 1. So nitrogen has 7 electrons. Write the notation. 1s2, 2s2, 2p3. How many valence electrons does it have? 5 valence electrons. How much does it need to become happy? It needs 3 more electrons, right? To become happy and have 8 valence electrons. So if we add 3, we add them to the P, لأن ال P تتفول ب6 فنقدر نضيف 3. So now this is the new notation of the electron. الأيون هذا الأيون N negative 3, this is its electron notation. Okay? 8 valence electrons, happy. Okay guys? And that's the end of the lesson. Now we have a final activity. I want you to stop the video, try to solve this question. Okay, write the notation for oxygen and oxygen negative 2. Okay, so stop the video and try it. Okay, so oxygen has 8 valence electrons and oxygen minus 2 معناها minus 2 means gained 2 electrons. So it has 10. Sorry, this is not valence electrons. هذا 8 electrons in total. So if we write the notation, it will be 1s2, 2s2, 2p, 4. Now for O negative 2, it is 1s2, 2s2, 2p, 6. لأن احنا ضفنا إلكترونين للp. Okay. What about this one? Try it on your own first and then come back. So Mg has 12 electrons. Now Mg plus 2 has how many electrons? Excellent. 10 electrons. Why? Because plus 2 meant lost 2 electrons. فقدت إلكترونين. So 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2. And this one is 1s2, 2s2, 2p6. فقدنا we lost 2 electrons from here. الفالنس electrons فقدناهم. So we lost all of this. Fe has 26 electrons. So try it on your own and come back. Fe, E plus 2. So for Fe it's 1s2, 2s2. So this is 26 electrons. Before we continue, sorry, 26 electrons, and this one is 24 electrons. لأن فقدت 2. 2p6, 3s2, 3p6, 4s2, 3d6. Now, here 10, 10, and 6. Now this one is going to lose 2 electrons, صح؟ عشان تصير Fe plus 2. Where is it going to lose it from? الفالنس electron. وين الفالنس electrons? 2 valence electrons. So the notation for this is the same, just we remove 4s2. 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2, 3p6, 3d10. Remember this? This is happy because it has 18 valence electrons. Pseudo noble gas configuration. Okay? That's the end of the lesson, guys. Hopefully it will benefit you and help you in your studies. So thank you again for watching the video. Please subscribe if you did not subscribe yet, and share the channel with your friends. This is Mr. Muad, and see you in the next video inshallah. Take care, guys.